Hey y'all, it's been a while. If you're still around and following my content at all, thanks. Very much appreciated. A lot's been happening and I, like loads of others, have been going through a lot. I'll get around to that in a later update video, but for now we'll get to today's subject, Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. So to start, I'm extremely picky when it comes to which racing games I play, and most of the ones I'll go for are usually more arcadey in nature. I got my start a long time ago with Mario Kart on the SNES, then Daytona USA, which probably lined me up for exactly what sorts of racing games I'd gravitate towards. Which is why when I was pulled into Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transform by a friend of mine way back, I fell in love with it once I learned how the game worked and all. While I didn't play any other kart racing games between any of those mentioned, bypassing known favorites like Diddy Kong Racing or the several Mario Kart games at release, I love Transformed so much, and I probably put enough time into it to make up for all the games that I missed. When Team Sonic Racing was announced, I was hyped. Loved that game, which is pretty contrary to a lot of what I hear from most people, but I was also lucky enough to make friends that also loved and played that game loads, so we got to do co-op play and put the team mechanics to work. Even playing solo, I just find Team Sonic Racing to be a really chill experience with smatterings of chaos here and there. I'd say all this to get to Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, which, before I say anything else, I first want to say thanks to Sega for letting me in on the beta, and second, and most importantly, none of what I'm about to say should distract from the fact that CrossWorlds is going to be a day one buy for me. I find it super fun and there's a lot that pulls me in, but we're not going to ignore the bad as we go. To start, CrossWorlds brings back the transformation gimmick that was part of what made Transform as good as it was. Starting your car and getting to certain portions of the track will change your car into a boat or a plane. We've also been shown that we'll be getting extreme gear from Sonic Riders, which is really cool, but that wasn't available during the beta. So we'll have to see how that goes when we get to it. What's interesting this time around is that there are sections of tracks where you get to choose whether you want to take a path for the plane or for a boat or a car. Everyone's not tied down to what the track itself dictates, and I think that's kinda cool. Further pushing on that as a concept is the titular CrossWorlds feature. During the second lap, whoever is in first place will get to choose whether they want the track to shift into something that's predetermined, or if they want the track during the second lap to be randomized. This has the potential to create such an interesting dynamic for races, since the person in the lead can go with the option they know, and could be safer for them. Or they could throw a wrench into things for everyone and make it so no one knows what's ahead of them until they get there. It can definitely make races extremely different every time, and I think it's a really cool concept. When it works. Granted, it's a beta, and part of the point of these is to fix things that might be wrong before the games hit its full release, but there were times where the giant rings that transported everyone just didn't work. No matter how hard I'd try, I'd slam into walls or get tied up in the stage geometry. It's something that cost me race after race, and hopefully that gets sorted out, because it's beyond frustrating, but when it works, it's an amazing concept. In addition to the CrossWorlds mechanic is the car customization. While Team Sonic Racing definitely did let you do quite a bit with its customization, it had the drawback of being limited to the racers themselves. You could only do so much with a car within the parameters of that racer's typing. You couldn't, for example, put Blaze, who was a speed type, into a car centered around power mechanics. For CrossWorlds, they take that leash off, kinda. If you want to use Amy in a hulking power type vehicle, you can do that. And there's some mixing and matching you can do to accommodate it. It makes the customization pretty cool, though one drawback it has is that when you pick a specific vehicle type, you're locked into those kinds of parts. You're not going to have a huge power frame kitted out with a bunch of speed type parts, which in turn makes the direct car customization seem almost arbitrary, since parts only give small stat changes overall across the board. Where the customization really takes a step up in CrossWorlds is the new gadget feature, which allows you to equip gadgets that directly change how certain things work for you in a race. You can use gadgets that make you capable of pulling in rings from a further distance, things that make you obtain more attack or defense-based items from item boxes, gadgets that affect your ability to boost, or ones that make it so you get a small boost when someone bumps into you. It gets pretty wild overall, and with the added caveat that other racers can't see what you've got going unless they actively check your stats in the lobby, something that the lobby doesn't even let you know that you can do, mind. Gadgets play a huge role in your overall customization and race performance, and they're only kind of balanced out by the fact that you have to unlock gadget slots by racing and earning points towards doing so. It's something that adds quite a bit of depth to an already surprisingly deep racing game, and by now you're probably thinking, Aria, all this sounds pretty cool, but you sounded like you had some other grievances earlier. What's going on? Well, I'll tell you. Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, as cool as it is absolutely full to the brim with
chaos. Chaos exists. Stand back and witness the birth of chaos!
No kidding. In most other racing games you play, if you're good at the game, or even if others in the race are really good, it's not uncommon to see huge gaps between everyone on the track. In CrossWorlds? Nuh-uh. Everyone's tightly knit together pretty much all the time, and if you're not, the game will make sure you're caught up to the pack by teleporting you back up to it. And this in itself doesn't sound so bad. But then you take into account tracks having extremely sharp turns, loads of stage hazards while being very narrow in design most of the time, with exceptions, and the fact that there are lots of items flying around at any given time. And that's in addition to the fact that players can carry 2 items at the same time. And yeah, you're in for a rough time during most races. And the concept of being as grimy as humanly possible becomes a legitimate strategy. It seriously wasn't uncommon to see people purposely lagging behind to get their hands on strong items, only to hold them until later portions of the race so they could use them to barrel their way to the front of the line. This is made infinitely worse by the fact that many of the items are extremely potent, and you don't have any invulnerability when you're being hit by items in succession. If you made it to the front of the pack, pick a deity and pray. It's an extremely common occurrence, enough to make races feel less like tests of skill and more like tests of morality, because the slimiest, grimiest person is typically the one that comes out on top, and maybe it's that way by design. From what I understand from Mario Kart, that's almost expected of things there, so Sega and Sonic Team were probably chasing by doing this, but it's much more frustrating than fun. Maybe if they toned down the item frequency, things might feel a bit better, but as things were in the beta, it was pretty aggravating. All in all, CrossWorlds has a lot of potential to be something really cool overall. Hopefully they sort out the things that I and so many others are struggling with / coping with in its design, so we can have a racing game that feels more balanced and skill-based. I think the concepts are cool, and I still had a lot of fun, but I definitely think things could be better. There's still not a release date currently, but I'll be more than ready to race whenever that drops. Thanks again to Sega for letting me on board for the beta, and thanks to anybody who listened to me ramble for however long this winds up being. I don't find too many things that compel me to talk about them like this, but here I am. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and stay awesome.